What is up, everybody? Welcome to The Dirt. We are blessed to be joined by yet another stellar growth stage founder and CEO today. His company's mantra, Lift Up, is what really drew me to invite him to the show, which we'll hear more about later. Also intriguing was his recent scale, tripling in revenue this year and set to double annually over the next few years. Talk about a lift up. But things weren't always so golden for the business, as they never are. So as always, we're going to talk about the journey, the dirt, and how he had to overcome all kinds of challenges going from a couple million to 10 million to 50 million and beyond. Founder and CEO of SPOC Automation, Bobby Mason, say hello to everyone.
Well, good morning, Jim, and thank you. It's just an honor and a privilege to be with you this morning.
Yeah, well, it's a pleasure to have you. So let's start with Lift Up. What is Lift Up and why is that such an important part of SPOC Automation?
Wow, that's a great question. And fundamentally, it is the essence of our entire business. It's a journey and a story, and Lift Up is really what we call our culture. It is our core values. It is our mission and our purpose. And we're a high-tech automation company. We fancy ourselves because we're based in Alabama as high-tech rednecks. And we're in the energy space. We started in oil and gas and have bridged that into hybrids in the future and software monitoring solutions. But really, Lift Up is about people. We try to lift up the individual and give them a place where they can grow and thrive and their families can thrive. We lift up each other as a team because everybody that is on your left and right is important and valuable and an innovator. And if they weren't, they wouldn't be here. And then we lift up our company through the products and the gifts and intellectual gifts that we've been given. And we lift up our customers. And we used to stop at lift up the country because we felt like if we could help the country be energy independent, that we were helping the country. But with the advent of one of our new companies that we spun off of, thanks to the blessing hidden in the form of COVID, we now actually believe we can lift up the world through some of the products that we have developed in the automation space that are going to save immense amounts of diesel burn and emissions and make people's ESG goals profitable instead of just a good feeling.
Yeah.
So we're pretty excited. Lift Up's about culture. It's about people, and at its core, that's, even though we're an automation company, we're about people and solving problems for people.
So take me back to some of the early days, maybe when you were a couple million in revenue or so. Take your pick on where you're at around there, though. SPOC's, not in its infancy, but it's in its early growth, right? What are some of the biggest challenges that you faced in developing the business?
That I'm going to go back just a hair further than that, hitting that first couple of million. We're a spinoff company that actually kind of goes back to your first question. We started this place because of a culture misalignment. At the time, I worked for a family business that my father sold, and the new owners, in my youth, I would say, made me mad. But now that I have no hair and hopefully a little more wisdom, it was really a culture misalignment. And they bought a company that was a high-tech automation company that they wanted to then turn into something else. And they did their due diligence on finance, and they did their due diligence on the business, but they didn't look at culture. And so I'm going to say that fundamentally, this entire company was founded on culture misalignment and a culture that I wanted to foster and grow. And so we had a lot of challenges initially because we're a startup company, and you have financial challenges, you have space limitations, all of those things, just like every startup does.
Mhm.
We had the advantage of enjoying and embracing technology. We've always kidded ourselves about we never want to be on the leading edge of technology. We actually want to be on the bleeding edge of technology. And so, as we built the company up, a great example, Salesforce. We were early adopters. We've been on Salesforce for almost 18 years. That for a startup company to invest that kind of money into a platform like that, which now today we house our ERP, MRP system. It's used for CRM. We actually do all of our manufacturing process. Everything sits on the Salesforce platform. But that forward-thinking beginning allowed us to do things like build out a 360-degree view of a client, and be able to do some things that multi-billion-dollar companies strive for but never achieve. And so we're pretty excited about some of the early choices, but you've got to put some forethought into where those problems are and how to solve them. And since that's really one of our missions is we solve people's problems, we had to slow down and think about the things that we need to solve and not paint ourselves into a box for the future. Does that somewhat answer the question, or did I?
Oh yeah, it definitely does. And you bring up a couple themes that I want to dig into. So first, you've mentioned culture a few times, right? Culture, mission, vision, all the above. Has that always been from being, a second generation entrepreneur and being involved in family business before SPOC? Has that always been a focus of you and your families? Is culture first, or was that kind of a newer thing that became so central to the theme at SPOC?
That's a funny thing. If you'd asked me that question 20 years ago, I would give you a totally different answer. But again, I think some wisdom and some age has shed some light there. And that is, the answer is yes, we really have focused at it from the get-go. It is the secret to our success. I've been honored and privileged to be able to be on several 15 or 20 different speaking engagements talking about culture. Our culture is so important to us that literally we have 4 aspirational goals as a company, and our number one is actually to be nationally known for our culture. We want it to infect not only our people, but we want our vendors to be affected by our lift up culture. Our customers are a recipient of our lift up culture. And so some of the biggest victories for me personally and for the company are that we've had multi-billion-dollar companies ask us to come in and talk to them about how we did it and why we do it and what makes us so different and how do we sustain this growth and this creativity and this innovative spirit. And it boils down to that. And the culture journey, back to your question, and I'm sorry for the rabbit trail there, but the culture piece was not formalized initially. I was very specific in culture in who I hired early on and had a lot of alignment, but I didn't have a formal program in place. It was not called Lift Up in those days. And really, it was about 7 or 8 years, about 8 years ago that we formalized and codified it. I had the privilege of sitting in a presentation. It was really on execution maximizer and kind of like traction and EOS and all of those process things. I sat through a presentation and with Jim Barnish, and he was talking about scale and growth, barriers to that. And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, this is interesting. And as he went down the path to growth, we're way ahead on technology and infrastructure, and we don't have nearly the people, but we've got the revenue. And so I'm feeling, beat my chest. I'm feeling good. We're on there. But he got into communication, and really the barrier to growth is people. it's people and communicating to people. Well, I decided I wanted to hire him and have him come in and work with us because we weren't a siloed company at all, but that was somewhere we needed help. And he came to me and after the seminar, and we talked a little while, and I said, I'd really like to hire you and have you come in and work with us. And he said, well, tell me about your core values, your mission, and your purpose. And I kind of smiled and I said, well, I've never really put that on paper. Just, we know who we are. And he said, well, I'm not going to work with you if you don't do that. And I kind of looked at him funny because here's a consultant not wanting a consulting fee. Come on.
Right.
And we talked a little while, and he said, I tell you what, I'm going to send you a couple of Harvard Business Review papers. I want you to read them. And then if we'll have a conversation. And if you're still not interested in doing those things, we'll just agree to disagree. And so I did. And it was companies that had longevity, that were making a difference in the world, that were really companies that I admired, and I wanted to model pieces of what they've done. And we call it SPOCification. We pull the best out of everything and then we SPOCify it. But I read them. I called him back up and I said, Uncle, you're right. I'm wrong. I'm being an immature leader and I need to grow up.
And how big were you guys about at that time?
At that point, we were sitting in the 45 million range.
Got it.
And sporadic, because we were totally in oil and gas. So you can have some violent swings at times.
Sure.
But kind of smoothing out around in that range, in that low 40s. He came in, we talked. It was kind of funny because I told him, I'm telling you, I know who we are. It's all good. He said, it could take you 18 months to 2 years, some companies, to actually flush out. I said, no, we know. He said, well, you and every other client I've ever worked with said, So we go through this 2-day exercise of working on those things, working on our 1, 3, 10-year goals. And in 45 minutes, my leadership team had nailed our 5 core values, which are gratifying, committed, solution-focused, caring, and passionate, which if you can't hear passion in my voice, sorry, I'm on maybe radio only, but I love this stuff and I love the people I do it with. So, and since I spend more time with them than I do my family, I should love them. And that's part of culture. Sure. It's aligning yourself with people that have the same goals and aspirations. And we nailed it in 45 minutes. We had our mission, our purpose, our stuff, and he was even blown away. And I actually doubted myself afterwards. And so we went back and we were kind of flushing out, tweaking our own definitions a little bit, wordsmithing exactly how we wanted to present it to the company. And it kept haunting me in the back of my mind that this isn't 18 months, this is more like 18 minutes. Mm-hmm. So I hired another consultant that came in and they sat with our people in the different departments, out in production, in warehouse, engineering, just all throughout the company for about 2 weeks. And they came back with this report. It was about 70 or 80 pages. And I remember that distinctly because I'm dyslexic. And you hand me an 80-page report and I'm just like, shut down. I'm out.
Show me the dashboard.
That's it. Give me a dashboard any day. And I'm all on that. So he slid it across my desk and he just said, Bobby, here's the deal. This is going to read like a kind of a kiss behind report. You have something amazing. It is special. It's unique. However, there's a few areas that you could work on. And I said, well, I don't care about, I don't need the rose colored glasses. Tell me where we can get better. That's really all I want to know. And there was a few areas, and it was around communication again. I have the honor and privilege of being able to talk to clients and talk to customers and get feedback. And And I know when they're happy and when they're less than satisfied. But the men and women that build this stuff, the core nucleus of this place, they don't get that privilege and they don't get closure. And so we identified a gap in our business where they didn't get the honor and privilege of knowing that for months and years I have poured my blood, sweat, and tears into these products. But I don't get to hear, what did it solve your problem? Was it professional? Was it there when we promised you it was going to be there? Did you like it? Did it solve your problem? And so we instituted a lot of different things around the culture. We codified it all around those things, including them in the process. We implemented voice of the employee and voice of the customer into the culture piece of the company to try to bridge that gap. And the results have been astounding. As a matter of fact, I've had people ask me, you put all of this effort into culture, and is it profitable though? I mean, is it just a recruiting tool? Well, the answer is yes to all the above. We have been blessed with being the best place to work in Birmingham repeatedly, year after year. We've won it at the state level. We've been recognized by Inc. magazine as one of the best places to work in America. We've made the Inc. 5,000 fastest growing company for a private company multiple times. And all of that is a result of the tenure even. We just celebrated at our Lift Up Award ceremony in December, we celebrated 3 people that have been with us 20 years. And as a celebration, we gave them 10 grand, and we want them to take an extra week of vacation and take whoever they want to take and go somewhere on us and thank you for being part of something special. And those things in a labor crisis that we are in today, we don't have a labor crisis. We have a stockpile of candidates that want to join us. And as a company that's in hyper growth mode, I mean, we'll be adding 50 plus people this year and probably again next year. The culture that we've invested in for now going on over a decade, actually 2 decades really from its inception, but the Lift Up formalized program, it yields incredible dividends from a customer, from a vendor, and from an employee. It's a 3-legged stool that if any one leg's missing, the stool doesn't stand.
So Bobby, when you're thinking about and speaking to those listening who I'm sure are enthralled by your story and trying to connect it to where they might be at right now, which may be, they got started, or, most commonly probably they haven't really put the energy into culture. How would you suggest they get started as a hey, let's dive in tomorrow in making their place a better place to work?
That is a wonderful question, and I've put a lot of thought into that for many evenings over my career, because I've had a lot of people ask us. I had a group in yesterday that a gentleman that was doing a plant tour asked a very similar question, because he's got a business, and he said, "How do you scale that culture? I mean, that's special."
Yeah.
A lot of places lose it when they start scaling the company. But I'll go back to that pivotal moment. First of all, I have to say, I give credit where credit is due. I founded this company with prayer. When I turned in my notice and I quit my job to do this, I went home, and my wife was expecting our second child, and I told her, "Hey, good news, I quit my job and I'm starting a business today." And she grabbed my chubby little cheeks and said, "Have you prayed about this?" And I said, "Absolutely, I have," and put a lot of thought and prayer into it, and feel like this is what I need to do. And as a result, I have never had another word out of her other than support and praise, which got my home life in line, which helps my business life thrive. And find out, I would give any startup company, a company that's just beginning the journey or even in the journey, define who you are. Come up with those core values. Come up with your purpose and your mission. I used to tell people I would have Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 100 companies come in, want to do business with us. And they'd hand me that happy brochure and I'd read it, but I knew the salespeople or the representatives, and they didn't live that out.
Mm-hmm.
If you can't be genuine and authentic, don't do it. Please, for the love of Pete, don't do it. Just forget it and just abandon the whole thing. You have to know who you are, what you want to do, and where you're going to go. And if you can be authentic with that, with your core values and your mission, the people that you hire need to be hired based on culture and fired based on culture. And if you do those things, everyone rows the same. Does it mean there's no conflict? No. Does it mean that everything is rosy and doesn't require any hard work? No. But you're aligned with people that believe what you believe, and you have a cause and a mission, and you can succeed with that.
Well said. You mentioned that you had brought in a couple consultants a couple different times, what I would call validate the strength of the company, right? And weaknesses as well. That growth oriented mindset, that value oriented mindset can be tough as an owner because you're letting a third party in, right? You're opening up, all your weaknesses to somebody else who doesn't really know you that well.
Right.
Tell me, some founders really struggle with that, right? Tell me more about how that was beneficial for your growth and where you saw the value to maybe do that again sometime, depending on, what the need was.
I know I'm full of stories, but I actually have a great one that aligns with that question. I'm a member of a CEO forum group, Vistage, and there's a lot of really good ones out there. And I would highly recommend anyone that isn't using outside consultants and peer groups and all those things to reconsider. I know my business extremely well. I've been in this business now for 40 years almost. And I think that I'm borderline an expert at what I do. Okay. However, I don't know everything. If I knew everything, I wouldn't need all these people around me to make this place work. I need experts. It's no different than your health. You go to a doctor to help fix a specific problem. You go to a nutritionist to help you maintain proper diet. You go to your business is no different than that. You have to humble yourself despite the expert that you are. And you are. That doesn't mean that you know everything, though.
Right.
And we began using outside help. And I was also privileged to have my father join us after he worked out his tenure with that other sale as a partner. So I literally have had a business consultant with me throughout this entire journey. It just happened to be my father, who'd run multiple companies and been an entrepreneur his whole life. So I'm a second generation entrepreneur. But with that said, he had always taught me to surround myself with people that are smarter than me, and I'm going to look like a genius. And so I have been open to help because I know where my strengths and weaknesses are. And sometimes I have blind spots, and without that third party, non-biased, neutral viewpoint, sometimes I can't see them, and they're blind spots. They're not necessarily ego. And so any startup, get help. There's people out there that would love to help you, and they don't all require you shelling out huge dollars either. Vet them, make sure you know who you're getting your advice from.
Mhm.
But absolutely, even at our, with this hyper growth right now that we're going into, we'll double again this year. We just finished up our 2-day strategic planning. We mapped out our 1-year goals, our 3-year goals, and our 10-year goals. We reviewed our business plan. We made a lot of major tweaks and really honed it in and got it tight with language that a kid that I just hired right out of high school to a R&D engineer and anybody in between will be able to understand, digest, and articulate where they fit in our journey and how they help us get there.
Love
But
that.
I still have hired consultants today to help us in this journey, because I've got to double production as well as the financial side. We've hired consultants that specialize in industrial engineering to help us map out material flow, to help us map out what kind of footprint we need, how many people we need to achieve these goals. We could do all those things ourselves. We have the in-house talent. However, it might take me 6 months or greater, maybe 9 months, to come up with the number that I can hire an outside consultant to help me. And I'm going to have an answer by the end of this month.
Right. Right.
Sometimes we're our own worst enemy because we're not willing to ask for help. It's an investment in your future.
Well said. Well said. And now you've got this family of companies, I'll call it for lack of a better word, right? Or maybe that is the right word. Nine-figure business, right? And growing, doubling. And as you think about what's next, as you think about some of these things around your strategic planning, you mentioned, distilling all those things down into something that's simple and easy to understand. You've also mentioned in a previous convo with me how you enjoy just sitting back and being able to watch the team do what they do in some of those planning sessions. Like, talk to me. That's one of the best things in the world, as far as I'm concerned, being able to just sit back and watch your team do what they do best without you needing to say a word. And you said something similar as you were going through this planning session. Just, it seems weird as an owner is an entrepreneur who starts off having to do everything and then evolving and growing a team, that eventually you want to be unnecessary to the business operations in a way.
Yes.
But talk to me about that journey and some of the aha moments you've had as you've grown to 9 figures.
One of the biggest was that first barrier to growth when I sat through that presentation. That first $1 million, and it's usually $1 million in revenue and 10 people or less in headcount. Mm-hmm. Well, when I started this company, I wore an engineering hat, a sales hat, get out there and build it, manufacturing hat, a delivery hat, a collections hat. And I used to verbally tell my people, the best alternative to work is to have a meeting. That was the most absolute true statement when I'm wearing 7, 10 different hats. And yet the worst leadership thing that I ever could have done. Mm-hmm. I ingrained a culture that I had to smooth those burrs off later on as the company grew. Mm-hmm. Because I was setting a tone as the leader that communication is not important, and it is. You can't scale without excellent communication. Right. Because the bigger you get, the faster the wheel gets, that flywheel picks up momentum. You have to communicate. It is just vital. And if you don't have trust and people that care and have alignment, that communication is even magnified. And so that was a big turning point for me when I realized that I needed to mature as a leader and put that communication structure into the company. So
Mhm.
a lot more meetings, however, a lot more effective meetings, because I hate going to a meeting that is not planned out, that we have a clear agenda that we're trying to do. And we actually grade every meeting. At the end of every meeting, everyone in the room ranks it scale 1 to 10. Was it a good use of your time? Not did I give a good presentation or any of that other stuff. It's, was it a good use of your time? And if it isn't a good use of your time, let's don't meet. And
Right.
then we hold it, and then accountability is the second leg on that stool. If we're just going to meet to talk and there's no actionable items and people are not held accountable to that with deadlines and finishing what the task is, it's useless. And so those are things that we focus on that were pivotal points that helped us get there. And then I've added more process in along the journey.
Right. And it doesn't really matter what system you use as long as you have one, right? A lot of people use
Correct.
EOS. You mentioned Traction or your version of it, Execution Maximizer, right? There's V2MOM. There's all these methodologies, right?
Yes.
It's just finding the one that makes sense for you and sticking to it. I think
Sticking
that's
to
what you're getting at.
it is. As a matter of fact, in the last 5 years, corporate, we call them rocks, you can call them initiatives or goals.
Mhm.
Every quarter, we have 90-day goals, and they align to our 1-year goals, which align to our 3-year goals. But every 90 days, we have, as a company, we have learned for major corporate rocks that cross departmental lines, we are really good at 3 or 4 because it's above and beyond your daily work.
Mhm.
Once we get beyond that, we don't succeed. We don't get them done. And we've accomplished 68 major initiatives in 5 years, on top of all those other things I mentioned with growth
Right.
and that is because we are relentlessly pursuing that consistency.
Mhm. And efficiency and productivity, right? I mean, you
Yes.
mentioned all these things that connect to value. And you even mentioned earlier being an early Salesforce.com SFDC customer for 20 years, right? Which is unheard of in many ways, considering that how far ago 20 years was. And when they were just in their infancy. So, how else have you leveraged tech to improve operational efficiency and productivity?
Well, we're a family of 3 companies. Okay. And SPOC Automation focuses on oil and gas and pump and compression controls, anything spinning an electric motor, a rotating equipment process. We have the grid company, SPOC Grid Inverter Technologies, which is taking those same inverters with different software and applies it in hybrid energy solutions. And then we have the third company, which is SPOC SCADA, and it is a monitoring and supervisory control data acquisition through satellite or cellular. So technology is our business.
Mhm.
We are an automation company and a power electronics company. And so we not only do we use Salesforce before we moved our ERP system over to the cloud, we actually had 5 different business systems. And we were good old QuickBooks, and you could do everything and nothing all at the same time. We had a third-party software that did our bills of material, because you couldn't do kits and BOMs very well in QuickBooks. And then we had a separate homemade system that we made for scheduling and MRP, and it was just a nightmare. And then we moved everything over. We utilize everything but payroll sits now on that platform, and it works well. But we use technology everywhere, and it turns out that when black swan events like COVID hit, because we were not averse to investing in technological platforms that have a future, it was not as It was a catastrophic event because our revenue dropped in 45 days by 65%. Now, that you could call that a black swan event. However, I'm going to go back to our original discussion on culture. Because of the lift up culture, because we had been prudent with our finances and we had a war chest set aside, I was able to assure all of my employees we could go a full 90-day quarter without one single order, and every one of you are going to get a paycheck. Don't worry about that. Grab your laptops, grab your computers. If you are not in manufacturing or shipping and receiving, work from home. And we did. We took that year, and that luxury, actually, that tragedy disguised as a blessing, allowed us to really focus. We had been wanting to get into that space of hybrid energy solutions and just not had been afforded the luxury of time to invest into it. And so we did, and we came out of that with not losing a single employee. We came out with a new company. We've got 3 patents already, and we're working on some additionals. All of that is technology based. We would not be here talking about this today had we not invested in our future through the use of technology. And we do everything from Paycom for payroll, so that there's visibility and transparency to every entire employee. We use technology in our everyday business transactions. We use video messaging and emails. It's who we are. Yeah. And if you don't do it, even as a small company, you're setting yourself up for a potential nightmare.
So some other companies or some founders who might be listening that may not be as good on the system side, may not be as good on the efficiency and productivity side. What advice in terms of getting started or up leveling them or lifting up their own business would you have for them as it relates to tech and systems?
I take that same approach that I do with anything else. Come up with a list of what you think your top 5 or 6 stumbling blocks are. What's your biggest challenges? Stack rank them. And then, just like we do with our rocks, where we're trying to meet our yearly objectives, that's actually what we did on Monday and Tuesday of this week. We picked a couple of areas where if we're going to double, we need some additional systems and processes to change. So pick that area, whatever that area is, whether that's communication, whether that's on the marketing side, whether that's in the process of the business. Pick it, focus on it, knock it into small, manageable chunks that you can solve, and then be relentless in solving that first one. And then solve for problem number 2. And sometimes you got to solve number 1 to be able to get to 4 or 5. And so that's why you need to put some thought into stack ranking, because the rocks and the goals and initiatives that we set today, had we not already solved number 1 and number 45, we couldn't even begin to discuss the ones that we're working on today. Literally, we call them rocks because each one we solve is laying a foundation and building a wall, and we're getting better and better and getting higher and higher with the magnitude that those rocks add to the building of this company.
Love it. All right. Well, we're headed towards the end of the episode. I like to close things off every episode with what I call the Founder 5. All about growth, all about value creation, all about you. And it's 5 questions. Just go quick hit right through them as best as we can. And you ready?
Fire away. I'll try to be quick. That you've already learned that I may speak the Queen's English. It's a little slow, but there's a lot of it.
There's a lot of value in it too, though. So I'll let you continue as long as I can. How about that?
Fire away.
All right. So number one, the top metric or KPI that you are relentlessly focused on.
Productivity improvement.
Love it.
And we look at that a little different. It's not just in getting units out and building. We actually look at that everywhere. Productivity is in accounting, productivity. Everyone here is an innovator, and we actually define that. We break the company into 4 groups, and we give nominations and awards, just like we do for our core values. We do the same thing for innovation. And so at the end of the year, we celebrate, we monetize and monitor where we've made process improvements, either in the processes, the products, or the services. So
Great.
that's as quick as I can get that one out.
All right. No, that's good. That's good. A lot of value there. So number two, a top tip for growth stage founders like yourself.
Humble yourself, check your ego, as Jocko might say, and ask for help. Surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, and you'll look like a genius.
Amen to that. All right. Favorite book or podcast that's helped you grow?
Favorite book. My favorite book is the Bible, because I spend a tremendous amount of time in it. It has so much wisdom. From a worldly view, I will say, we actually, we are currently doing this as a company for the second time. The entire company, we divide them up, and we were going back through extreme ownership by Jocko on how Navy SEALs lead and win. And I love that book because it is all about personal responsibility and accountability to not only yourself, but to your team. And we win as a team and we lose as a team. And we really like winning. It's one of our favorite things. And so I really love that book because it gives you a battle scene, and then it gives you an application to business. So it really helps you tie those together. And it's an amazing thing. My COO was actually telling me yesterday, he was just jazzed up. He was just on fire. He said, man, I just went and we divide the company up. So you got a warehouse worker, an engineer, a CEO, and a bunch of guys, production, and it's all mixed together in these little small groups. And we break the company up, and they're going through a chapter every other week, and different people are leading. And he said, I got this kid. He's 18 years old. He's been with us 2 weeks. He decided he didn't want to go to college. He wanted to learn a skill and a trade. And he's leading. He's in there talking about this. He said, this is amazing. My job is easy because they are buying in. They get it. So sorry, I get passionate on this stuff. It's fun to see these young people. They blossom and bloom. Invest in them.
It is.
Pick a book and make sure you do it as a company. That's a great one.
Since you mentioned the Bible, though, what is your favorite verse?
Between the covers.
However,
I will say we all have that race to run. I am a firm believer in planting those roots. I talk about Jeremiah. It's my favorite book. It's not just the verses. And I love that analogy of planting that tree near good water where the roots can go deep, and then it's generational. Because my whole goal in this is when I die, and I've worked really hard for the last 15 years, that if I die, if I get hit by a bus tomorrow, this company thrives, and each one of these men and women, their jobs are not in jeopardy, that it's not about me. It's about helping others, and our products and our services can change the world. And that is my goal.
Great. All right. And lastly, what is going to be the title of your autobiography when you look back and write about your story?
Now you got me on my heels. It's funny you say that, because my CMO has been on me for a long time that I need to be documenting that. I'll close out with something that I say pretty often, and that is, when I die, I would like my tombstone to read, if he told you it was going to rain, take your umbrella to work. I want to be known as the guy that I'm not going to be disingenuous, and I'm not going to lie. I'm going to do what is right. And at the end of the day, the chips will fall where they may.
Love it. Well, you've given so much to our listeners today, Bobby. So time for a little bit of self-promotion. How can those listening help you out?
Well, I appreciate that. And really the best way would really just come visit our website, where you'll see it's SPOCautomation.com. I'm also on LinkedIn under Robert Mason. And we've got a lot of information there about the culture. There's actually a whole section. We're actually going to go live with an updated website with just culture on it. It's a microsite off the main one. You just hit the lift up tab, and there's a series of videos and a lot of information on how we do it. And if you are in the market and you need help turning a hybrid system, we kind of kid, a lot of people can do hybrid systems with electrical and battery, but not many people do it well. So if you want to do a well thought out engineered solution, we're your place. We're pretty excited. We actually, that's one of the areas that's one of our coins is gratifying. And one of the products that we launched this year, it's a product called Energy Boss with the Grid Company. And it takes a diesel generator and turns it into, basically, think of a Prius. So you've got stored energy with industrial batteries, inverters, and a power system that we've designed with a generator from manufacturer. And we're seeing an 80% reduction in diesel fuel burn, and the emissions. If I'm running 4 hours out of 24 hours, you can imagine the emission reduction that affords people. And so some of those technologies are pretty awesome. We're doing some really cool things on marine vessels. So anybody in those markets that needs help with inverter technologies, give us a call. And if you want to know about culture, there's a lot on the website about Lift Up.
Lift up, lift up, lift up. Great closeout. Thanks, Bobby.
Thank you. My pleasure.